Madam Chair, members of the commission, we're now live.
Good evening and welcome to the April, what is tonight, the 25th? 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Karen Burdett and I am the chair. And I will now ask the commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left. But first, we have 3 commissioners who are calling in remotely tonight. One of the very few benefits of COVID was we learned how to do all of this remotely, and we actually ran our hearings remotely for quite a long time during COVID. So we have the technology to allow these commissioners to call in remotely to get our quorum, otherwise none of us would be here. So, starting on my left.
This is Commissioner Doman.
Michael Galway.
Commissioner Nasser.
Zara Nasser.
Christina Arado.
Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Devin Murtha, Historic Preservation Staff.
Laura DiPasquale, Historic Preservation Staff.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff. And I just want to confirm, has Robert Sutton been able to join us online? No, we are expecting Commissioner Sutton to join us online as well.
But we do have our quorum still.
We do have a quorum, yes.
Okay, thank you. The first item on our agenda this evening are the historic area work permits. Have the work permits been duly advertised?
Yes, Madam Chair, they were advertised in the April 9th edition of the Washington Times.
Thank you. If anyone is here to testify for any of the cases, please give a speaker form to the staff. It's right down there on the table. And they will let us know that you are here to address one of the cases. We are going to begin tonight by expediting the cases we believe can be expedited based on the staff report. Okay, so we're going to get through the cases that we are not going to be hearing, and then we'll do the cases we're going to hear afterwards. So starting with the expedited cases, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to case 1D at 11 Quincy Street, Chevy Chase, 1F at 500 New York Avenue, Tacoma Park, 1G at 3820 Warner Street, Kensington, and 1I at 10110 Day Avenue, Silver Spring?
Madam Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following hops in accordance with the facts and findings included in the staff reports, including any conditions as recommended by the staff. Hop number 1111156 at 11 Quincy Street, Chevy Chase. Hop number 1111439 at 500 New York Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 1111097 at 3820 Warner Street, Kensington. And hop number 1111801 at 10110 Day Avenue, Silver Spring.
Thank you. I believe the address for the last one was 10110?
Correct.
Day Avenue, okay. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Doman. I'll second that.
All in favor say aye.
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 And I got ayes from our 2 remote folks. Then the motion
Yes.
passes unanimously. So those cases are all approved. If you have any questions, you can speak to staff tomorrow during regular business hours. We appreciate your work to preserve your properties and in working with staff to submit easily approvable permits. Okay, the first case we're going to hear tonight is item 1A at 1811 Brighton Dam Road, Brookville. Is there a staff report?
There is a staff report, Madam Chair. However, the applicant who indicated that he was going to appear for this case, who actually asked us to postpone it so he could appear on this date, is not yet in attendance. Are you appearing for the applicant, ma'am? Okay. Great, thank you. So what I might suggest, if we defer this case until he arrives and perhaps move on to item 1B, and I believe the applicant is here for item 1B.
Okay, we will do that. Item 1B at 15120 Barnesville Road, Boyd's. Is there a staff report?
Yes, if you can give us just a moment to get situated here.
It appears that our third or our sixth commissioner, well, Bob Sutton is there. Okay, so Commissioner Bob Sutton is available. Thank you. Bob, we are starting with 1B at 15120 Barnesville Road, Boyd's, and the staff report is about to begin.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh my goodness gracious, I finally did it. Shock of shocks. Amazing, yes.
Okay. This is Laura with the staff. This is a review for HOP number 1106426 and retroactive HOP 1108511 for 15120 Barnesville Road, Boyd's. The property was constructed around 1890 to 1900 in the commercial core of the Boyd's community and is classified as a primary resource in the Boyd's Historic District. The projects will be reviewed under the Vision of Boyd's, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards. I thought I had updated that. Under HOP 1106426, the applicant proposes to remove 2 large cypress trees along the east elevation of the house and to plant new saplings elsewhere on the property. The application does not identify the locations of the proposed plantings. Based on photos from the 1980s, around the time of designation, staff estimates that the existing trees are around 55 to 60 years old, given that the trees appear young but not newly planted in these earlier photos. The applicants did not provide an arborist report, but a site visit to the property demonstrated that the trees are in close proximity to the house and that the roots appear to have caused some cracking in the concrete walkway at the front of the house and supplemental foundation wall along the side of the house. Staff finds that the proximity of the trees to the house poses an unsafe condition that could be remedied by the trees removal in keeping with Chapter 24A 8B4. And while the Vision of Boyd's identifies trees and rural vegetation as a character-defining feature of the district, and in particular the mature trees lining White Ground Road in the residential area of the district, the same qualities are not applied to the commercial area in which the subject property is situated. Staff further finds that since the trees were planted outside of the primary period of significance for the district, which ends in 1935, under Chapter 24A8D, the Commission should be lenient in its judgment of plans for structures of little historical or design significance, unless such plans would seriously impair the historic or architectural value of the surrounding historic resources or would impair the character of the district. So while conducting the site visit for the tree removal application in February 2025, our staff noticed that many elements of the exterior had recently been replaced. And upon comparing Google Street View images from 2012 through 2024 and current images, staff determined that none of the exterior changes since 2012 had been permitted. This work includes replacement of the wood siding with fiber cement siding, installation of a new standing seam metal roof, masonry painting, replacement of wood windows with vinyl windows, replacement of the front door, installation of a condensing unit, construction of a small pressure-treated rear wood deck, and concrete paver patio. So subsequently, the applicants have acknowledged that they were responsible for the siding and roof replacement shortly after their purchase of the property in 2022, and it's my understanding that the painting of the chimney also took place at that time, though we can clarify with the applicants. And they are requesting retroactive approval for these changes, and we'll also address the changes by the previous owners separately. So as you can see here, the original wood siding had a Dutch cove lap profile with a narrower reveal, that's hard to say, of approximately 5 inches. The replacement siding is hardy plank wood grain fiber cement siding with a flatter appearance and wider exposure of 7 inches. The original roof was a corrugated metal and was replaced with a low-profile standing seam metal. The chimney on the east elevation was previously unpainted red brick. and has now been painted white. Staff finds that the original Dutch lap siding was a character-defining feature of the property, and that neither photographic evidence nor documentation provided by the applicant demonstrated that the original siding was beyond repair, and that the change in material, dimension, texture, and appearance of the siding runs counter to Standard 6 and Chapter 24A8B2 and constitutes a substantial alteration to the exterior features of the resource per Chapter 24A8B1. Staff recommends the new 5-inch reveal Dutch lap wood siding be installed to restore the original appearance, and notes that that restoration would be eligible for the county's 25% rehabilitation tax credit. Regarding the roof replacement, staff finds that while the low-profile standing seam metal roof was not an exact in-kind replacement for the previous metal roof, a comparable profile was present on the porch roof, and that standing seam metal roofing is a compatible roofing material for use in the Boyd's Historic District, in keeping with Chapter 24A8B2 and the vision of Boyd's. So staff recommends that roofing be approved as installed. Staff finds that the painting of the previously unpainted masonry chimney is inappropriate and incompatible with the resource, as it can trap moisture and cause spalling of the historic brick, and is not in keeping with Standard 2 or Chapter 24A8B2. Staff notes, however, that paint removal itself may cause damage, and recommends that, pursuant to Standard 9, applicants conduct a test paint removal using a chemical paint removal product designed for use on historic masonry to determine if paint can be removed without damaging the underlying brick. And if it cannot, staff recommends the chimney be painted a brick red color in a vapor permeable coating. As mentioned previously, other unpermitted work was completed prior to the current ownership. At the time of designation through at least 2012, the property had primarily 2/2 wood true divided light windows. These were replaced with primarily 6/6 vinyl windows with between glass grills, as well as other configurations of vinyl windows for smaller openings. Likewise, the property previously had a wood door with 4 panes of glass, 2x2 over 3 horizontal panels. Between 2018 and 2021, the door was replaced with a steel or fiberglass door with 9 panes of glass with applied muntins over 2 vertically oriented panels. Between 2012 and 2018, the property appears to have had new HVAC installed and a condensing unit installed on the east side elevation. Staff finds that while that element is visible from the public right-of-way, it's located in a low spot on the ground adjacent to the foundation and does not damage or obscure historic materials or substantially alter the exterior features of the resource, satisfying Standard 2 and Chapter 24A8B1. And likewise, at the rear of the property, a part concrete, part paver patio with paver block knee walls was installed on previously open ground. Staff finds that the patio has limited and also a pressure-treated stair. And staff finds that these have limited visibility from the public right-of-way, did not destroy historic materials that characterize the property, and therefore do not have a substantial impact on the resource, in keeping with Standards 2 and 9 and Chapter 24A8B1. So finally, staff recommends approval of the applications with the following conditions placed here: that the 2 new shade trees be planted on the property, and the applicant submit a site plan or aerial view showing the location of the replacement trees, that the fiber cement siding be replaced with 5-inch exposure wood Dutch or cove lap siding within 180 days of the approval of the HOP, that the applicants conduct a paint removal test on the brick chimney, and if the paint cannot be removed, the chimney must be painted a brick red within 180 days of the approval, that for future work, that the replacement windows are not eligible to be replaced in kind and must be reviewed under a new HOP when they're replaced in the future, and must restore their original 2/2 appearance and be constructed of wood or an appropriate clad substitute that more closely approximates the appearance and materials of the previous windows. And likewise, that in the future, a replacement door is not eligible to be replaced in kind and must be reviewed under a new HOP and more closely replicate the appearance of the previous door, as noted here. Any questions for staff?
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Doman?
Yes, thank you for the report. You mentioned that in the future, the windows if they are replaced, cannot be replaced in kind, and the door, if the door is to be replaced, cannot be replaced in kind. How in the world can you enforce this? I mean, if the property is sold and somebody else moves in, who in the world is ever going to know that there's been a restriction placed on the windows or a restriction placed on the doors? How does staff handle this type of restriction?
I can answer that, Commissioner Doman. This is Rebecca Ballo for the record. The permit conditions are binding. So we give this permit to the applicant, like all historic area work permits that have conditions on them, and then it is up to them to inform the future owners of any, binding issues or restrictions on the property. We post the permits publicly on our GIS website. So when people are researching properties to buy, that's another way that we've started to make this information public. It's the same way if people have restrictions on any building permits or if there are any zoning restrictions on their property that were done through previous conditional use approvals by the hearing examiner or any other public body that carry forward. A lot of that is really up to the owner to do their due diligence about the property that they are purchasing. And then if the condition is violated in the future, then that owner is liable to have to come back to us. We do go out in the field. We picked this up on an inspection for the permit for the tree. So we are out in the field. We work with the inspectors from DPS to go out in the field, and future owners are bound to this. It's not a perfect system, I'll admit it. It's not a perfect system. But also, as soon as anybody files a building permit in the DPS system or files a historic area work permit, we'll also catch it that way. Just because it may be difficult to enforce does not make it any less binding upon this property owner or a future property owner.
More question.
Commissioner Doman, another question?
Another question. Why, I just can't see any reason to paint the chimney red. You've already got it painted once, which probably isn't the best thing to have done. But to come back and paint it red seems like you're doubling the doubling the amount of paint on there. If you're ever going to, first of all, I guess the situation is they should try to take the paint off, which I agree with. And I don't know if the paint, I don't understand why you need a semi-permeable paint when the paint that's underneath, the red paint that's going to be put on top is not semi-permeable. It seems like, I don't even see why you bother painting it. Just leave it white, and to me that would be either take the paint off or leave it white. I don't see any necessity to go back and paint it red.
Is that a question? Or
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Why do you want to paint it red? Because as HVC,
Sure.
we do not dictate color of things.
Sure. I'll let Ms. DePasquale address that.
That's correct, that we don't dictate the painting of wood, wood trim elements and that sort of thing, but typically we do not approve painting of masonry, and that condition was a suggestion to allow it to have more of the original character and differentiation, to appear more like the original building material. If you disagree with that condition, then you are not bound to move forward with it.
I have another question. On your report, on page, I guess it's 33, but of this one, it's figure 8 of your report. It shows the house in 1986, and there's a rear chimney on it. What happened to the rear chimney?
I don't know.
Was it removed under a hop, or what happened to the rear chimney? We don't know, do we?
It was not removed under a hop. From my understanding, there were no hops for this property previously, and it does not appear in any of the Google Street View images for the property since that time.
Okay, I just thought maybe we missed it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff? Commissioner Galway?
Yes, Commissioner Galway, regarding the condensing unit being in a low spot, is there any reason that you saw when you were there as to whether that could have been located on the rear of the house? And the trees are still there, right?
The trees are still there currently.
Once those trees are removed, in your opinion, does that make that condensing unit a much more prevalent object?
And to your first question about whether it could be moved to the rear,
Well, not from a technical standpoint, but just from a,
I
a
think
space
physically,
standpoint.
yes, spatially, yes, I think it could. I don't think it'll be overly conspicuous in the existing location if and when the trees are removed, unless substantial grading happens where the trees are removed.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Nasser has a question.
This is Commissioner Nasser. I just wanted to confirm if all this work was done by current owner or part of the changes were done previously.
So here's a list of if you can see this, of the work, and it's
Oh, sorry, I missed it. Yeah,
That's okay.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, so current owner for a few of the elements, and then the remaining elements were not by
Thank
the
you,
current owner.
thank you.
If there are no more questions for staff, then I would invite the homeowner or the applicant forward, Mr. Tatarian. If you'd please come forward to the table and have a seat and turn on the microphone until the green light turns on. Give your name and your relationship to this project or this property.
How you doing today? My name is Gerbet Garo Tatarian. I work with SRK, who owns the property.
Who is SRK? I mean,
SRK is the company, and the owner is Rafi Kahan and Sean Kahan.
and is it a residential rental?
This property has 2 buildings. The one we're speaking about is the residential.
And is anybody living there right now?
No.
Okay. Oh, that's good to know. All right. You will have, you can make a presentation or speak to this property or the issues related to it. He has 7 minutes total.
Sure.
You don't have to spend all that time, but you can make your case.
Okay. No, I first wanted to start off by thanking Laura. Thank you so much. As I told you, I'm new to this, so I really appreciate your patience. I understand everything clearly. We understand everything clearly. My only question really is if and when, we proceed with removing these trees, if it gets approved, how can I find out what type of patio or walkway is appropriate?
Do you mean,
Or are we meant to just repair what's there?
are you talking about around the back or?
No, the front. There's cracks and it's uneven, it's unsafe for walking on.
Oh, at the entry to the
Yes,
house?
The front, sorry, I should have specified.
Okay. When the trees get removed or when that's coming up, then you
Okay.
can call staff and they can advise you on what will be an appropriate replacement material
Wonderful,
and how it can be configured.
perfect.
What about any of the other issues that,
I understand it completely. Everything that's outlined for us and what we need to do.
and you have no issues with doing any of it?
No, I mean, it was not done like, how can I explain it? Kind of looked at the buildings next to us, and kind of try to replicate that, but, it wasn't the right way to go. But we're currently working on permitting for the commercial building as well, so we want to get everything up to speed, We're all local guys. We absolutely love this property, and we just want to bring it back to life.
Are there any questions then for the applicant? Commissioner Doman?
It's Commissioner Doman. So to me, the big issue is the siding that's on the house right now, which is, the staff pointed out, the reveal is not the same as what was originally on there. So you are saying, yes, it's okay, we will remove the hardy plank that's on there and put,
If that gets us back in good standings, that's what we'll do first.
okay, I understand. All right.
Are there any other questions? I would like to say that when you take the trees down, I assume you're going to want to grind the stump?
Yeah, and there'll be a report before we do anything,
Okay,
just to make sure you guys are okay with what we think is right.
yeah,
Of course, we have to provide the drawing for where the saplings are going to be as well.
yeah.
So we'll be in touch before we do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, just be careful with, when you're taking the tree down and grinding the stump, the vibrations, you're very close
Noted.
to the foundation of the property.
That's very good to know, and I will ask whoever we hire to do that
Yeah.
about it.
And call Miss Utility
Oh,
while
perfect.
you're at it. So you bought your company bought the property just a few years ago?
Yes.
And to Mr. Doman's, Commissioner Doman's question, the rear chimney was already gone by that
It
point?
was.
Okay, so that happened previously,
But we did paint that existing,
the existing.
so we'll try to remove it and follow instructions based on what
Okay.
you guys decide.
Okay. And our remote commissioners, are there any questions from any of you?
This is Commissioner Sutton. No, I have no questions. I'm pleased that the owner is very interested in doing what we're recommending. That's very comforting.
If there are no more questions, then, well, we can have our discussion if we need to, but I would just like to start off by saying it is a pleasure to hear that you're willing to do everything that is being recommended. One of the issues we have is often people come in here and they've bought a property. You're supposed to be told when when the property is changing hands, that it is historic, and not everybody gets that message. And one of the issues we're having with this one is when you remove too much of the original material, it pretty much stops being what it was.
Yep.
And up county, we are losing our historic properties at a pretty fast clip. So we're very happy to have someone who's willing to remediate some of the, or some of the changes that have been made. And again, as the staff said, we're not going to make you replace the windows because was done prior to your ownership. In regards to the paint, again, you will want to do a test and see what the paint is. And one, can it be removed? And two, is it vapor permeable?
Okay.
If it can be removed, that would be great. If it's vapor permeable, that means one thing. If it's not, then that is really unfortunate because it can cause a lot of damage to the brick if it stays on it. I agree with Commissioner Doman that putting another layer of paint on a non-permeable paint doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay.
I'm not sure I find the chimney that character defining as it is, and I don't think painting it red would be a very good idea. That just kind of,
Should I check back in after trying to remove?
why don't we go through the commissioners and get everybody's opinion on this, and we might, depending on what the commissioners think, we might, when we vote on this hop, we might have a change to it. But let's get through the commissioners. So all in all, thank you very much. I'm very much in support of this hop and all the work you're going to do. Commissioner Galway, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Galway. I support the staff's recommendations with one exception, and that is I also agree with the two commissioners that at this point, I would love to see the paint removed. I'm not a big fan of going back and painting it, so if I were to make the motion, I would support staff's recommendations with that one exception.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
This is Commissioner Doman. I did drive by the house today
Oh,
to take a
really?
look at, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you own the store next to it, to the east of the house? Is that yours?
No, the country store? No. The convenience store?
No, not the country store.
Oh, the
the
commercial building,
the
yes.
commercial building.
Yeah, that's
yours.
also in permit stage. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. The reason, now this is off the topic, but anyway, there was a stop work order posted in the window. Did you see?
Yeah. So basically, you know, with this work that was already done, that work order, all I can do is apologize. But I've been strictly handpicked to handle these permits from going forward. So we have a designated person on this, and all I can do is apologize for the past. So.
Okay, well, I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate the work that you're doing on it. I think you're on the right track to get this thing approved.
Thank you.
And I agree. If this is staff, is this consultation now? Are we talking? Yeah, I agree with everything on here except for painting the brick red.
Okay.
And that would be the only change to the staff recommendation.
And do any of our remote commissioners would like to make some comments before we vote?
This is Commissioner Nasser. I agree with other commissioners for the record. If we can remove the paint from the chimney, that would be great. If not, there's no point painting over it. Also, I wanted to thank you for being cooperative and willing to make all these changes. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Sutton, and I agree with the paint issue on the chimney as well. I was going to be contrary, but I said, nah, I don't think so. I think it's just ridiculous to paint it red. Looking again at the pictures, I was not able to go look at the house. I think it's fine to, hopefully we'll be able to remove the paint, but if not, I think leaving it the white color is fine. And I think, is it appropriate to make a motion at this point?
Yeah, if Commissioner Radu has no comments, then yes, please make a motion.
I make a motion that we approve this project. I don't have the number in front of me. Maybe I shouldn't because I don't have the number here, but with all the conditions except the condition dealing with the chimney. And with the condition that if the paint turns out to be inappropriate for removal, we leave the paint color as is.
Commissioner Galway, would you like to add some information to that?
I will. To add to that, maybe it's just easier to kind of restate it. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission, in accordance with the standards set forth in Section 24A of the Montgomery County Code and the Secretary of Interior Standard for Rehabilitation, approve HOP number 1106426 and 1108511 retroactive as recommended by the staff, with the exception that should the white paint not be able to be removed from the chimney, that it remain white and not be painted red.
That sounds so much better. Thank you.
All in favor?
Wait,
Say
Madam Chair, we need a second.
It's Commissioner Dolman, I'll second that.
now. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? And there are no abstentions, then the motion passes. And I'd like to thank you very much for being willing to work with the staff and accept our decision, and we hope very much that the paint test is favorable for removing the paint. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate everything.
Moving on and back to item 1A at 1811 Brighton Dam Road, Brookville. Is there a staff report?
Rebecca Ballo for the record, and yes, Madam Chair, I have the staff report. So this item is retroactive HOP number 1107314 at the property located at 1811 Brighton Dam Road in Brookville. This is the master plan historic site number 23-72. So this property is the Prospect Hill Master Plan Historic Site. The residence dates to approximately circa 1783. So Prospect Hill Farm survives as a significant reminder of Montgomery County's Revolutionary era heritage. The main house, again, was built on the property circa 1783 by James Holland, a Revolutionary War patriot, and used by him and others as a meeting place to discuss their role in the American Revolution. it is singularly important in that aspect for its history in the town of Brookville. The 60-acre property includes the farmhouse with its intact federal period interior detailing, a barn, a single crib, corn crib, and a family cemetery. Historically, the property included a woolen mill, a stone quarry, and slave quarters, none of which are extant today. The main farmhouse is a 2-story frame structure with a distinctive double-story porch extending across the south elevation. And the entire property in the designated area measures 5.85 acres and includes the restored residence and its addition, the corn crib, main barn, wooded areas, and pastures. The designated area also includes the Holland Family Cemetery, which is listed in the county's burial sites inventory as site number 36. This cemetery includes approximately 20 graves dating from 1816 to 1911. So a little bit more about the permitting background of this property. The HPC approved a new 2-story addition to the residence in 2015, and then subsequently approved a 3-story garage in 2022. The HPC held a preliminary consultation for unpermitted alterations across the property in July of 2024. This historic area work permit application seeks retroactive approval for the construction of a log cabin or outbuilding. It's labeled as the historic cabin in the preliminary consultation report. And while the new construction is an after-the-fact alteration, it should be reviewed by the HPC as if the construction has not yet occurred. The standards of review are the Montgomery County Code, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. So a little bit more about the project background. The HPC again reviewed a prelim in July 2024 that identified unpermitted violations related to the following: installation of fencing, grading and site alterations, 12 newly constructed buildings or structures, and alterations to 2 existing structures. The applicant at that time was given feedback on which items could be supported by the HPC and which could not. The applicant was instructed to submit a historic area work permit application for the unpermitted structures and alterations. However, after months of inactivity, DPS, the Department of Permitting Services, issued a notice of violation in December of 2024. The applicant appeared in district court on March 18th, 2025, and entered a guilty plea, basically pleading guilty to not obtaining the required historic area work permit for these alterations, and agreed to a 30-day abatement order. The applicant filed a HOP application that you see before you for this retroactive approval of the construction of the cabin. All other violations remained outstanding, except for alterations to the corn crib, which were removed, and I verified that at the end of 2024. If commissioners recall, there were 2 shed roof structures constructed adjacent to the corn crib that were sheltering very large fuel tanks. Those have been removed. So as a reminder of all of the items that appeared at the preliminary consultation for discussion, there were many over the property, and what we're talking about here this evening is just the historic cabin. So the blue outline, which stretches outside the screen, is the property boundary. The yellow is the environmental setting for the master plan historic site. Here's the location of the main house, their driveway, and then the historic cabin again, which is the subject of this evening's application. At the time of the preliminary consultation, the applicant was instructed to complete a detailed scaled site plan for the designated portion of the property, to complete drawings, scaled measure drawings for the historic cabin, to include information and specifications for the materials used in each of the newly constructed buildings. The HPC also recommended a condition specific to the historic cabin regarding archaeological investigations, giving the Revolutionary War era construction of this property, and the fact that for generations people were documented to have been held in slavery on this property. There were slave quarters on this property. We don't know where they are. So the HPC had recommended a condition related to archaeology, and that recommendation is carried forward as a condition of approval for this application. So here are some images of the historic cabin, the front side shown here to the left with the front porch, and the rear shown here on the right. So this recently constructed building measures 25 feet long, 16 feet wide, and 16 feet tall. It is located about 30 feet to the west of the main house and faces to the east. Its wood post foundation supports the timber walls infilled with caulk. The gable and shed roofs are covered with a standing seam metal roof. The doors are wood plank, and the 1/1 sash windows are vinyl. A covered wood front porch is located on the front, the east-facing elevation. The applicant has added a covered shed roof structure to the rear, which is not shown here in these photographs, but is shown in the drawings, and it is extant. And this shed roof structure measures approximately 22 feet wide by 24 feet 8 inches deep. It is also covered by a metal roof that matches the roof on the cabin. The roof of this structure is supported by wood posts set in concrete, and all of these details are in the submitted plan and architectural drawings. So here again, you can see this is the main house, and this is the cabin circled in red. Here we have the elevation drawings from the packet. I know it's really small to see on the screen, but you all do have this in your packet, so you can zoom in on some of the specifications and the dimensions, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that. And then here we have the first floor plan and the roof plan, and you can see here in plan the posts which are set for the covered, the shed roof structure to the rear, which you can also see here with the posts. And I did verify with the applicant that they do not have any flooring or decking or a concrete patio planned for back here. It will all remain as it is, which is just dirt. So similar to the findings from last summer's preliminary consultation, staff accepts the construction of the historic cabin per Chapter 24A8B1. The building does not substantially alter the exterior features of the historic site. Per Chapter 24A8B2, the building's simple one-story design is compatible in character with the historical, architectural, and cultural features of the site, where small outbuildings in the farmyard were common. The cabin is constructed of wood milled on the property with a standing seam metal roof, new wood doors, and salvaged vinyl windows. The lean-to shed roof structure off the rear is constructed of these same materials, which are compatible in design and aspect with the master plan historic site. Therefore, staff finds that the building meets the applicable Secretary of the Interior standards 9 and 10. And again, archaeological investigations should be conducted around the foundation and the vicinity of this building. So staff recommends that the HPC approve the retroactive HOP under 24A8B1 and 2 and standards 9 and 10 with the following condition: that the applicant must hire an archaeologist that meets the Secretary of the Interior's professional qualification standards for archaeology to conduct archaeological investigations around the foundation and in the vicinity of the new construction to identify whether there is any evidence of an historic outbuilding in the location or whether there is evidence of historical features or activity areas such as middens or kitchen pits, things like that. This work could consist of close interval shovel test pits at 15-foot intervals in the immediate vicinity of the cabin and up to 2 3-by-3-foot excavation units along or near any possible historic foundations or other features. A draft report must be submitted to staff for review and comments. Any comments must be addressed by the applicant's archaeologist and a final report submitted to the Historic Preservation Office. The final report must be completed within 6 months of the approval of this HOP. And this condition was written and suggested by our staff archaeologist, Dr. Brian Crane. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions for staff? Commissioner Doman?
This is Commissioner Doman. For the archaeological survey, is it just restricted to the environmental setting, or do you run, since this looks like to me the cabin is right on the property line, or right on the line, the yellow line that you had that showed where the the environmental setting is. To do this, do you go to the off of that yellow line, and you can go all the way around here, or it doesn't matter if it's in the environmental setting or not?
So At a higher level, the HPC cannot condition work that is outside of the environmental setting. Your purview is only within the environmental setting. So the way the condition is written, when we talk about that the archaeological investigation should be around the foundation and in the vicinity of the new construction, this should be determined in consultation, again, with Dr. Brian Crane, our archaeologist. We do not envision it going all the way, this far to the yellow line. That is really not necessary when we're talking about the immediate vicinity. We're really talking about within the limits of disturbance for what they have already built. So around the foundation of what has been constructed and maybe just a few feet out from that, but not extending into the farmyard or any other areas. We're mostly looking to see whether or not the construction of the cabin itself disturbed any foundations or any trash pits that might have otherwise been found.
This is Commissioner Burdett, or Chair Burdett. You keep referring to the cabin as the historic cabin, but it is not historic. It's new, right?
It is new. My apologies. Yes.
Okay.
Could also refer to as a new log cabin. It is not historic.
Do we know if, and I'm kind of talking off the immediate topic of the historic cabin, but if there's going to be archaeological work done, has there been an archaeological survey of the cemetery on the property, which is within our area of review?
There have not been any GPR, ground penetrating radar, or other archaeological studies within the vicinity of the cemetery. The cemetery has remained undisturbed, except for the burials that have been interred there over time. There has been no new construction within the area of the cemetery, so there's never been a request or a desire or a need, frankly, that staff has seen to conduct any archaeological surveys within the boundaries or in the vicinity of the cemetery.
And as to the other items that were found, we can only deal, with this HOP, we can only address the cabin. Can we address any of the other items that were part of the preliminary?
In terms of, so the application tonight is whether or not this work item should receive a historic area work permit. If you have questions for the applicant about any of the other items that were part of that preliminary consultation, you can certainly ask that. But the findings about whether or not it's appropriate and should be approved should be on the merits of this particular work item.
The cabin. Thank you. Do any other commissioners have questions for the staff? Okay, if not, then the applicant can come forward. Mr. Shirazi and Roshan Shirazi, please have a seat and turn on the mic and identify yourselves for the record, please. And you will have 7 minutes to make your case, or give a presentation, whatever, but you'll have 7 minutes.
I'm Jeffrey Shirazi.
Roshan Shirazi.
Okay, would you like to discuss or make a case or a presentation regarding this cabin?
I guess I was expecting to answer questions.
You will be asked questions,
Okay.
but first, we let you make your case or say anything you want to say about the this particular HOP, and then we'll ask our questions of you afterwards.
So,
Our understanding of tonight is that it's about the cabin, so I think we were more prepared to answer questions.
okay, I'll talk about the cabin. So the cabin, I feel like there's a little bit of misunderstanding about the foundation. There's no foundation. And how should I say this in a nice way? That if I'm getting approval to put in a fence and you dig a post, you install a post in the ground, there was no, how should I say this? It's a very minimal disturbance. And I feel like I'm getting picked on because I put a post in the ground for the cabin. There's no foundation. So it's like, why would I have to do some archaeological dig Then I should do that for the entire area inside the historic setting, if that's the case. So I'm questioning why will we have to do that? There's no foundation. There's clearly no foundation.
But you did, the house is on post.
It's not a house, it's a
I
cabin.
mean, it's a cabin, but the cabin is the,
On a post, just like the fence is, and the fence
how
doesn't-
many posts were put into the ground to support the cabin?
Maybe 10? I don't have it off the top of my head, but
Maybe 10 is an estimate.
So,
it shows it on there.
So this is Commissioner Galway. So this would be what we'd consider a pole building where the posts are dug into the ground,
Yeah.
maybe put in cement or something, concrete?
No cement, yeah. It's just sitting maybe, let's say 12 to 16 inches in the ground. It's hard to tell exactly how much, but because of the contour of the ground. But again, my question is, why would we need to do an archaeological study if there's fence posts all over the area?
Well, in all fairness, we're trying to understand. It's unusual that there isn't a foundation, so I mean, we may have jumped to the conclusion
Yeah.
that
No,
there
but-
was a foundation.
but the
Is there a
staff saw
slab
that
on
there's no
grade, or is there no slab inside?
There's no slab, nothing.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right, thanks.
so the posts,
The posts are put in just,
the 10 posts are in the ground. They're supporting the framing, the framing that is holding up the floor and the walls, correct?
correct.
Okay. And the posts are only around the perimeter?
Correct.
Holding up the walls? There's no post in the center holding up any
There's one
cross
in
beams?
there's one in the center.
Okay,
Yeah.
there is one.
This is not a cabin where someone can live in there. This is just so this is a farm, and we sell chicken eggs, honey, so we just store stuff in there. There's no, like, it's not like we're gonna live in there, you know?
Okay.
It's not this isn't some big structure that, that we're,
Like a shed.
it's more, yeah, it's like a shed, just like a shed that anybody would have in their backyard. You put posts on each corner and a couple in the middle, and that's it. There's no foundation. So I don't know why,
Well,
you know,
okay, I have another question
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
or actually two. My first question is, was there a permit to do this? A DPM,
No.
Department of Permitting Services, to build this structure on your property?
no,
No,
I did
okay.
mess up with that because I called the permitting department. They said that I didn't need almost 90% of everything that I asked about. I asked the permitting department if I needed anything. They said no because we're a farm. But they didn't. The person that was helping me didn't realize that it was in a historic area.
Yeah.
Which is fine, I understand now, like, because I got permits for everything. I built the house, I did everything, the garage. I mean, you could tell, it's not like I did all this work and had no clue about getting permits. I do this for a living. When I asked about, these structures are like for feeders, like for the cows. There was already fencing there in the first place. Not around my house, but like in the fields where you can contain the cows and the cattle and the horses and the chickens and all that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, so basically, it's not like we did it knowing that we were doing something wrong. We thought we got the correct information, and now we're fixing it and got.
yeah, but I understand now that we have
So,
to get the permits
all
for
right,
these
so
other things.
when you put the post in, did you drill the dirt?
Drill? No.
Did you use how did you get the dirt out to put the post? How did you excavate for the post?
For the post, a little bit of shoveling, little bit of a digging bar, and just pound it in.
And when you were bringing any of that soil up, did you notice anything in that soil?
No. Here's the thing. I already know the answer. I already know that where the structures were before because I have documentations. I did a lot of research. The people that lived there prior to me have contacted me. I have pictures. I have everything. But the staff never, I don't know. It's very difficult dealing,
Yeah.
with certain things. And I don't want to get into that, but a lot of this could have been handled a lot differently, but I feel like I was getting picked on, so I just kind of like, you know, I just had to take a break from this for a little bit.
But you're saying that the areas that we knew were historic, we've already gone through and we haven't found anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you repeat that?
Could you
ahead.
speak into
So
the mic?
there's an area on the farm that is like a quarry and like different areas where there were supposed to be slave quarters, and we've looked at those areas that we don't, it's very far away from our house and the structure that we're talking about. So our understanding is where we are and the house is, it's already been a lot of disturbance. So the historic area is not where the cabin is.
Okay.
From, as far as like where things could be. But they still, you know, obviously we do everything carefully to make sure, because we bought the house because we love the history. We're not trying to not, you know, pay attention to what's happening.
Okay. I've been kind of asking questions, simply trying to get a sense of this is all, the whole package that's involved. Because I, for one, wasn't at the July 24th hearing last year, but I did watch the recording of the 24th hearing or meeting and listen to the presentation, the staff report, the comments from both the staff, the commissioners, and yourselves from that time. So you'll forgive me if I'm asking a few more questions than what we normally do. Now, are we moving on to questions? Commissioner Doman.
This is Commissioner Doman. If I understand correctly, you're saying that the work that you did to put this cabin in is not much different than you would have done if you were putting up a fence. You would dig a hole and put a post in the ground. And you're saying when I put up a fence and dig a hole on the property, I don't need to do an archaeological survey. Therefore, why do I need to do an archaeological survey for this particular? Is that what you're asking? You want to know, you say you feel like you've been picked on, I guess.
That is absolutely correct.
You know?
Yeah.
So, not having to do I guess basically you're saying, why do you have to do an archaeological survey? Since it doesn't seem to be any different than other work that you've done on the property, is your question, is that correct?
Correct. Because also I have history from this. I work for Park and Planning. We're doing a job right now, and it's fencing around on Norwood Road at the police barracks. And how come they don't have to do an archaeological study, but I have to, particular me, you know, it's like, that's why I feel like I'm getting picked on. It doesn't seem right, it's not fair, and
This is Rebecca Ballo for the staff. I'm just going to add that as part of that work on Norwood Road, archaeological investigations were conducted by the MNC-PPC Parks archaeological staff, and we have that information, and that was included as part of the review.
Thank you, Ms. Ballo. Are there any other questions from any of the other commissioners? Commissioner Galway?
This is Commissioner Galway. You made the comment that you knew where all the structures were, and I was just to be clear, to understand, was this a location where there was previously a structure or a location where there was not previously?
nothing was there.
Okay, thank you.
I've just been corrected, I'm sorry. We're supposed to have one other speaker tonight here, Dr. Denise Bedford, if you'd please come up. You guys can stay there because we're going to have more questions for you afterwards. But Ms. Bedford, you're here to provide public testimony. How many minutes? You have 3 minutes, and you can say whatever you'd like.
All right, I'm Dr. Denise Bedford. I'm a retired senior information officer from the World Bank. I'm a retired endowed professor from Kent State University, and I currently teach at Georgetown University. I also currently work with Eileen McGuckian, Sandy Heiler. Brian Crane has been an advisor, okay? And we're working on Ash Memorial Cemetery. I just brought in Tim Horsley from Illinois, who does ground penetrating radar. And I know Josh Samuels Laura Mazer, and I already mentioned Tim. If Jeff needs an archaeological survey, and had he known why, he could have simply picked up the phone and called me, and I could have had it in place for him. I must support Jeff's comment. Maybe I'll state it a little differently, but Jeff has kept me informed of all the communications. And I have to say, as someone who has done conservation work for Stanford University, worked with Eileen McGuckian, and am a close friend of Sandy Heiler, who restored the Madison House, the Bentley House in Brookville, I'm quite shocked at how little background information and explanations you have provided to him. The neighborhood is so excited about the fact that the Shirazi family has moved in. Miss Betty's property was in total disrepair before they moved in. It was a danger to drive over the bridge to see if she was all right. People who came to help remove trees from her property were afraid to drive over that bridge. Okay? I don't know if you know that Mr. Shirazi has handicapped students from the high schools in Montgomery County come in every week. He's training them how to work on farms. The work that this family does is amazing. What they do is what we all wish we could do if we had the resources. It is a sustainable, ethically run farm. We will support him in whatever way he needs. But we need to know up front what those needs are. You cannot tell someone, okay, that they must build to a historic standard unless you hand them a book that says, here's what the historic standard is. I just heard the previous person say, ask, what materials should I use? You had no answer for him. You actually said, well, call us when you're ready to do that and someone will come out and tell them. If you want people to preserve historic properties in Montgomery County, you have to give them more to work with up front, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Bedford? Commissioners? Commissioner Doman.
I appreciate your testimony. I'm not sure that it you addressed his qualifications and his interest in the property. I understand all of that, and I understand your qualifications too. But you didn't touch on the need for this archaeological survey. So are you saying that because of his character that we do not need to do a archaeological
No.
survey? What are you saying exactly?
I'm saying have you formally informed him that he needs to do an archaeological survey? And have you given the area that he needs to do? If you have, all he has to do is pick up the phone and call me. I live across the street, and I will have it done for him. Okay? So there is Brian Crane. I know Brian Crane. Brian Crane will approve of the people that I have just called in to do the GPR of Ash Memorial Cemetery, which we found an unmarked mass grave on. Okay, so if that is what you need, tell us the area, tell us what kind of a report you want, and we will get it done.
Well, I thought the condition that's specified in the staff report says exactly what needs to be done. I mean, what you're saying is not that difficult. All you got to do is call. Can you just do that, and can't we move on?
Well, that's my question, but I have to tell you, I have 4 degrees, and I read the report, and I couldn't tell what you really needed from this, okay? I mean, my husband read the report as well, and he said, why are they bothering him about the fence? It's outside the historic area. If you give him clear instructions for what area you want surveyed, and he can give that to me, and I can hand it to my friend, the cultural anthropologist and archaeologist, we can get that done for you. But you've given Jeff no real information on how to do that. So I have to say, I understand his frustration. So that's if you need help, I'm happy to help, okay? But I'm telling you that we want him happy, and we want him in the neighborhood, and we want him to stay there, okay? Because he's really contributed, he and his family are really contributing to the quality of the neighborhood.
We understand your position. Thank you. Ms. Ballo, I want to just review the back history on this, going back to the July 24th, 2024 meeting, which at that point, the log cabin had already been constructed.
Yes.
Okay, so it was a retroactive hop at that point for the log cabin and about a dozen different structures that had been built within the zone of that we would review, correct?
Approximately, yes.
Okay. So, and at that point, the staff recommendations back then, or I guess well, this is now, correct? Okay, so but back then in '24, was the applicant advised that because of where the cabin had been built, and if he had come in for a permit, a hop at that point, he would have been advised to have done an archaeological survey?
Yes, Madam Chair. At the conclusion of every preliminary consultation, staff writes up the comments from the commissioners and the staff, and we compile that into a written document. We call it our preliminary consultation report, so that the applicants have the benefit both of the recording from the hearing and the staff report, but then also this summary of the comments. The preliminary consultation report that was written and provided to the applicant stated, and I'm looking at it, archaeological investigation should be conducted around the foundation and in the vicinity of the new construction. So it's talking about the cabin. So this exact language was provided to the applicant in July of 2024. Then I had a subsequent follow-up site visit with the applicant in the fall, where I discussed this with him and with, I think it was Pete at the time, who was out there with us, and Mr. John Lieberts from our office was also out there, where I discussed the need for the archaeological survey and said that, you know, we would be happy to provide additional information about that. I asked him for the timing of his permit, and he indicated there were a number of other items that he needed to take care of first, you know, wanted to take care of for his business. But I advised him that this was going to be required and that we'd be happy to have follow-up conversations with him about it. None were forthcoming. To the point about the foundations or the posts or this other documentation, we have not received it. You know, the applicant says they have this additional information about the outbuildings, about the slave quarters. We would love to have that information. In all of my subsequent site visits and email conversations with the applicant, none of that information was alluded to or ever provided. We would very much like to have that information, not only to help this applicant through his permits, but to help guide the HPC in your deliberations for all of these items. But that's the particular history having to deal with archaeology. I'd add too, you know, when it comes to fence posts or any ground disturbance or new construction here within the vicinity of the house, we would likely have required some type of basic archaeological information, you know, even if it's just a Phase 1A or 1B report. That is also fairly standard of conditions that the Historic Preservation Commission has required for antebellum properties where there is a documented history of enslaved labor and, you know, people living on the property from that era. That is not specific to this applicant. It is specific to the time period of these resources. So if any of this work, again, the fence or digging the posts for this cabin or any of that construction had come in and had been permitted, we could have looked at it at the time, much like we did with the garage or with the construction for the new house, and perhaps even discarded the need for it. But the work has already been done. So we don't have, you know, that information or the value of, you know, going into it sort of clean and having Dr. Crane be able to take a look at it. So this was also discussed as part of the preliminary consultation, and that's all the background I have, but I'd be happy to answer other questions.
I do have one other question. When it comes to who does the archaeological work, does it have to be a county-provided contractor, or can they get their own contractor who is skilled in the work?
The applicant is required to hire their own contractor. It's a conflict. We can't have county staff doing this work for them. Even in the other project, like at Norwood Road, for example, when we have a parks project come in, even though we're park and planning, parks is the applicant that comes to the Historic Preservation Commission. So it is the parks archaeologists that review via their park permitting requirements for any ground disturbance, even putting in a historic marker in their properties. The parks archaeologists do that work for themselves. But anyways, it's up to the applicant to hire someone. And typically what happens is that an archaeologist would do a pedestrian level survey, what we call a phase 1A. They would look at any documentation our office has, they would look at any documentation provided by the applicant, and then inform us as to what is feasible. We are unfortunately backing into this, which is the reason for the recommended condition.
Thank you very much. That was very clear and helpful, very much. All right, back to questions. Commissioner Doman, are you finished with your questions, or?
Well, yeah, but, I mean, what is holding you back from just saying, do it and be done with it and then move on? Why can't you just?
Well, it's,
I mean, you probably feel like you've been picked on. Okay, I understand that. And I understand maybe that I do not set the need requirement that comes from elsewhere. And I realize, as Ms. Mello just reiterated, that had it been done last summer or before, it may have been easy, whatever a 1A survey is, okay? But we spent this time here, and you spent time on it. Can't you just do this and move on?
well, by the way, this is not just one thing. I feel like I'm getting picked on in general with everything. Like, I know we're only here to talk about the cabin, but I'm gonna come back in very near future, and I'll be going over all the other structures with you guys, and you ask an average person if they looked at it and they observed everything, all the ways I've been treated pretty bad.
Sir, I would recommend, for the record, that you refrain from comments like that, because you are coming to us retroactively. And when applicants come to us before they do the work, it's much easier. And in most cases, a lot of that work will be dealt with by staff, and you won't come in here to talk to us. That's the benefit of coming in early, is that the work gets divvied up on what can be approved immediately by staff, and they will do the evaluations of what they can do versus what we have to talk to you about, so that you don't have to come in front of us. And you only come in front of us when it's a fairly large piece of work or significant. When it's retroactive, you come in front of us every time. And it is just a lot easier to get on the phone, call the staff, say, I want to do this, and they'll tell you, send me some documentation, and we'll talk to you about it. So please, keep the emotions under check, if you would. It will make tonight go much easier.
So I haven't said much during this whole process, okay, but I had my window open when Rebecca came, and the way that she was talking was personal, okay? And that's why we've taken it personally, because this whole time, we've done so much work. I understand there's some things we have a farm, so some things are, we're talking to different agencies. There's confusion, but we never had the intent of doing things that we weren't supposed to do, okay? So we're trying to fix whatever it was that we did wrong, talking to, all these different departments and the Farm Bureau and all these people. So I'm just saying, you can take emotion out of it, but at the same time, we feel like we've been treated not correctly compared to our other friends that have had historic homes, the way that we've been talked to. That's why there's emotion. And we're trying our best not to talk about it, but at the same time, we're human. So
Yes, I appreciate it, but
I just want to make sure that we say how we feel, documented, of how we've been treated, And then when somebody came to our home, the way that we were talked to, and other people from the county that have confirmed how we feel, but we'll leave that alone. We're going to do everything we've been asked to do.
And I hear you. And your property's difficult because it is a farm. It's got a lot, it's got a significant historic significance to it. And it's a large farm, and you're trying to run a farm operation, which complicates issue. And that's, going forward, please call up staff and talk to them before you do anything, because you don't want to be here.
We don't want to be here.
Again.
Of course, I agree with all that.
One more thing I want to add from what Commissioner Domain had said. There's a lot of things that have come up. So we're paying for things, we're correcting things, we're a family, we have a farm. So there's only so much money, things take time. We're doing everything we can, but at the same time, we have a family, we have 2 daughters, we have so many animals, I'm pregnant, there's a lot of things happening. So we're doing our best to follow through the steps, but we can't do everything in the matter of like 3 months. It takes time, and we are doing things.
Well, can I give you a quick example of why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling?
No, I would prefer you not. We're not here
No,
to.
I'm talking about a boundary line. That's why I'm saying that. I'm not talking about my feelings. I'm talking about a boundary line was moved intentionally. I mean, not the boundary line, the historic line on the map has changed by the staff, not by us. In fact, it's wrong. And it was intentionally done.
Ms. Ballo?
Could you clarify, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Which line are we talking about?
So if you're looking at the historic boundary, it shows the Brookville shearing shed. The post is on the opposite side of the driveway. It's not, I know because I'm getting picked on, I'm picking on, 15 yards, 15 feet, whatever it is, but it's not correct. Because we're arguing about an animal feeder or a goat shed that's right on the line, but that's not even the line. The line is.
Tonight, we're talking about the historic cabin.
Correct.
Let's stick to that,
Okay, we can stick
because.
to that. Or we'll talk about this stuff later.
Yeah, everything else will be discussed at another date.
Okay.
But tonight, let's keep it to the historic cabin. I think,
Gotcha.
things will go smoother, we'll get there. Any other questions from any of the other commissioners, especially the remote ones? Commissioners Nasser, yes, no, shake your head.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Radu?
I don't have questions. No, thank
You don't, or you do? You don't, okay. Commissioner Sutton? Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment about archaeology. I've worked in historic preservation for some time in a number of states, and what I've found is that frequently we have done archaeology on some sites where we thought there would be absolutely nothing. For example, a highway's being built, so we need to do archaeology at an interchange or something of that nature. And we have found archaeological sites that we thought would never, ever be in a certain location. So I think in a site like this, archaeology is absolutely necessary. And I know we're supposed to be asking questions instead of making comments, but I really, and this is just something that's very important, I think. And that's really it. The question I have, I think I was a chair when this project came before us for a preliminary in July, and I'm trying to remember. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the material from it, but I'm trying to remember all the details. But for some reason, I just don't get why it seems to be coming before us retroactively all the time. That's kind of different. But other than that, I really don't have any questions.
And Commissioner Galway, you don't have any questions, correct? No. All right, then we are going to move on to our comments, where the commissioners will provide you with their opinions and comments on this. And then we will, or they'll provide their comments, and then we will vote on the hop on the log cabin. Okay? Who would like to start? Commissioner Galway?
This is Commissioner Galway. First of all, thank you for being here. This may be difficult. We can't let this break down into a situation where it's tit for tat and we're at each other's throats. We are here to try to help you. Maybe you don't see that, but I look at it differently. In the last meeting, picking on you would have said not do some archaeological, but remove the log cabin because it was retroactively built. That would be picking on you in my mind. We are a tough bunch, but I don't think for 1 minute, and I've sat on the commission long enough to know that we are tough with a lot of folks. I can't sit here and say that maybe one day it's one thing and we may have a little difference of opinion, but we don't want to the comment that was made earlier, we don't want to define exactly what you should be doing and exactly which material you should be using. We want each of the owners to have some latitude and to try to follow the guidelines, the same guidelines that we're trying to enforce. So we're not picking on you. And I appreciate you bringing it up, but I think the best thing is let's bury the hatchet and let's together try to figure out how to help you with what you need to do going forward. I want that to happen. I don't want to be, for us to be at each other's throats from here on out. I would suggest come in, talk to the staff about what you want to do. Try to understand that you don't want something to happen retroactively because that does put us in a tough situation. So the fact that we have agreed that only thing as it relates to the log cabin is to do some archaeological, I actually think that's in your favor. I will say, when it comes to, and I asked the question about whether there was a structure there or not, sometimes if there was a structure, it might have been backfilled with trash. I mean, we're talking 1783. And I can also say, being an avid bottle collector of antique bottles pre-1900, is that you can find, first of all, there weren't trash cans back in those days. They either smashed it on the trailer, and they hauled it out a few yards from the house, or they just had a pit somewhere and they threw all this stuff. And there could be clay pots, there could be bullets, there could be belt buckles, there could be all kinds of exciting artifacts. The fact that it was sort of clarified, one of the questions I had is the vicinity of, and we're not talking 20 feet, 30 feet from the building. So in my mind, it would be going right around the perimeter, right where the holes were, and see, was there any debris? Could it have been an old dump? Could it have been backfilled at some point? You would be as interested as we were to pull something out of there and be able to display it in the home, saying these are artifacts that we found on the home, on the site. So I don't know that that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, just a peace of mind to say, hey, we have determined at a fairly low cost that there really wasn't anything in this site. And I think at that point, I mean, consider that as a palm leaf, or rather than us coming in a much more stern way. And so I would just ask you to think about that. Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
This is Commissioner Doman. I support everything you just said. I don't think we're picking on you, but I guess that's a personal point of view. After I kind of flip-flop back and forth on my opinion and what needs to be done, however, I support the staff report with condition number 1. I just be like the previous applicant, just say, okay, I'll do this and let's move along. And it seems to me that'd be the easiest thing to do here. So the archaeological survey, that's condition number 1 for approval. I support this.
And our remote commissioners, would you like to say anything?
This is Commissioner Nasser. I also support the staff condition. It's very clear. It's specifically mentions what they're asking for. So based on the history of this site, I support the staff condition, and I think it needs to be done.
And I already sort of spoke out of turn, but yes, I think the condition, we should include this condition in our HOP.
And this is Commissioner Rado. I also support the condition, and I want to add to the conversation. I agreed with the commissioners before. And I want to encourage the owner to really share the materials they have about the history of the site with the staff, and the staff will share it with us. So maybe future HOP applications or preliminary reviews or anything like that will go smoother, because no one wants to, have a frustrated commission, client, staff, you name it. So thank you.
And that leaves me, and I think Commissioner Galloway very eloquently put it when he talked about what you might find and how exciting that could be for you and your family. They're called, I believe, midden piles. Is that the term? A midden pile?
Midden or trash pits.
Or midden pit. And that was, the colonial equivalent of your trash can. And they could be outside slave quarters, but they were also outside the kitchens or outside any place not too far, even a latrine pit. And you don't know where it is, or maybe you do, but maybe if doing the archaeological survey will give you, might find something, and it might be from any point in the last 200 years.
I actually agree with everything.
Okay.
And when I was talking about the way I was being picked on, by the way, it's not the commission. It was just one staff member. And that's it. I wasn't talking about, I wasn't putting everyone in a hole.
Sir, please,
Yeah.
let me finish, okay? So, and since you seem to know somebody who can do this survey, that's even better, because then they can do it for you, and you can explore other parts of your property at the same time. And specifically, that cemetery would be a good place to test their equipment out before they come up to the house. I agree with the staff's recommendations and the condition. Would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Galway?
This is Commissioner Galway. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission, in accordance with the standards set forth in Section 24A of the Montgomery County Code and the Secretary of Interior Standard for Rehabilitation, approve HOP number 1107314, retroactive, as recommended by staff.
Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner
This is
Doman, I'll
Commissioner
second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? No abstentions. This motion passes. Your cabin is retroactively approved, and you do need, with the one condition that you do need to do the archaeological survey around the property. I'd also like to say that the commission, up here you have a lot of architects, engineers, historians, and architectural conservationists. So we do come with some expertise about all of this, and most of us now have been on this commission for anywhere from 4 to 6 years. So we come with a lot of time dealing with issues like this. You are not the hardest case we've had, but you are one of the more complicated ones. You are stewards for an amazing piece of property, and the house and the entire property. It's just, it is just a remarkable part of the county and the county history. And because of that, because you are the stewards, you are responsible for maintaining that property in a manner that your children and future generations can appreciate it as much as we can appreciate it today. And I would recommend highly that, as a couple of the commissioners said, you pass on or provide that historic documentation that you do have for them to research or record. And you have the Brookville Historical Society, Sandy Heiler, very close by. She was once the chair here at the HPC, and living in the house she lives in, which is a significant place in the American history. She would be a very good resource, a person to talk to. And with that, staff, you can talk with staff, and they'll tell you what to do next, and we will be seeing you in the future. So thank you for coming. And hopefully, moving forward, this process will be much easier for you. Okay? Thank you. Moving on, we go to item 1C, 5419 Mohican Road, Bethesda.
Madam Chair, the staff report for, this is actually two permit numbers at 5419 Mohican Road in Bethesda. It's this property that runs from between Mohican and MacArthur Boulevard. It is in the environmental setting of the R.A. Charles Castle Master Plan site. The historic house was constructed in 1891, and the new construction was done circa 2023, based on a 2020 HOP that the HPC approved. This is to be reviewed under Chapter 24A and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. So again, in 2024, or June 24th, 2020, the HPC approved a HOP for a single-family house in the undeveloped lot within the environmental setting. The house construction was nearly complete when a sediment control site visit revealed regrading was not consistent with the approved plans and encouraged HPC staff to conduct a site visit. At that visit, staff identified several features of the house that were inconsistent with the HOP and requested the new owners submit a HOP and a HOP revision for these unpermitted alterations. Again, this was all completed by the prior applicant and owner and the builder of the house, not the current applicant. So just to familiarize yourself, this is the new house directly in front, sort of walking around the left. There's an egress easement to the swim club, which is the path that runs along that fence. There's a substantial grade change. You see the silt fencing is still installed on the property to the south of the house. And this is around the south and to the west. So in the staff report, staff just provided a bulleted list of changes that were identified. I'm happy to review those individually if the commissioners would like, but those were all detailed in the staff report. And in front of you are the north elevation approved on the left and as built on the right. And then we have the west elevation. You see the fenestration has changed, introduction of a couple doors. South elevation. And then the east elevation is probably the most radical of the four. The grade drops off significantly more. The foundation, which was supposed to be stone veneer, is stamped as it's a stamped concrete. The chimney, which was engaged, is now expressed on the exterior of the house. So more changes there. And again, I'm happy to go over those individually if the commissioners would like. But staff finds the house is generally consistent with the overall concept reviewed by the HPC. Was approved in 2020. Several roof pitches have been altered, but the massing is generally consistent with that HOP. And staff finds the changes in grade on the east side of the house do negatively impact the character of the site. However, that impact is limited because it faces away from the R.A. Charles Castle and towards non-historic properties. So staff supports the HPC approving the design under 24A8B5 due to the owner's reliance on the belief that all permitting requirements had been satisfied for the new construction. Staff does not find any specific remedial work would improve the historic character of the site. So the second issue, which is actually the second HOP number, is during construction, a substantial amount of soil was moved to the south. The slope of this earth exceeded the maximum slope allowable under the county's stormwater management and sediment control requirements. So the applicant seeks approval for the installation of 2 dry wells, regrading the area to the south of the house, which includes planting 15 white oak trees and installing permeable pavers on the north side of the house, creating a 40 by 25 foot parking area. Again, so this is looking further to the south. You can see the sort of bump in the grade and the silt fencing that's still there. The dry wells are circled in the proposed site plan. You can see in the darker gray is the permeable paving area. The sediment control permit has been reviewed and already provisionally approved pending the HOP. So staff finds that the existing grade is steeper than the natural grade on site, and softening it will improve the overall site compatibility and reduce runoff and erosion. Staff recommends approval under 24A8B2 and 6. Staff finds that the dry wells will be below grade and will not visually impact the character of the site when installed, and that the proposed parking area will have less of an impact on the site than the approved garage, and the pavers provide a varied texture and color that avoids the uniform appearance like concrete or asphalt. Staff finds that the proposed pavers are appropriate under 24A8B2 and Standards 2. So there were two other issues that were raised in the staff report regarding overall compatibility. The first is the use of hardy shingles specifically. These are a very thin shingle. They were approved. The HPC approved the use of these shingles on portions of the exterior of the house, but staff finds that the profile and the shadow lines created by these shingles is too narrow to be an appropriate substitute for wood shakes. So staff encourages the HPC to consider this issue for future applications for future hops, and staff will continue to recommend a condition for the approval to those applications. Again, there are several other companies that manufacture a fiber cement shingle that's at least half an inch thick, which would be more compatible. And just to give you a sense of the profile, we've included two images of the house as constructed, just noting the flat surface created by that fiber cement shake. And then the other issue raised in the staff report was the use of exterior color. The approved HOP identified 2 earth tones for the building exterior. Approved permit documents identified the same colors for the siding. The finish of the house is white with black trim and windows, and the HPC tends to avoid any regulation of paint color except where it's integral to the historic character of the site. There is no support for or prohibition against paint color in 24A. Staff finds the approved house would have more successfully blended into the setting of the 2 rusticated castles to the west and the surrounding landscape in those earth tones, and we'll have a photo in just a second. However, staff does not find repainting is warranted, but brings this issue up for HPC's consideration and future decision-making, particularly for master plan sites that did not have district-specific design guidelines. So again, in the upper left is an approved image from the 2020 HOP. And then again, this is on the lower left is the building as constructed. And the building that's circled on the right is an infill garage that was constructed, I believe, in 2024, or is actually still under construction. So that one, the exterior colors do tend to blend in better with the R.A. Charles Castle, which is located in the background center of that property. So in conclusion, staff recommends the HPC approve the HOP for this building, the revisions and the sediment control permit and regrading under 24A8B2, 3, 5, and 6, and standards 2 and 9. And I will answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Dillman.
Yeah, what I have is not really a question, but we've had this discussion several times about the thickness of shake shingles and what is acceptable, and we always, the comment is that they don't have the right profile, a little bit too thin. I was wondering if staff could obtain some of these shingles. So I mean, I would like to see how they look. I'd like to see exactly why this is a concern. I mean, looking at a two-dimensional picture here, I don't see any relief on it, and I'm not sure if a thicker shingle would look much different. And we've had this discussion going on, but I would like to be able to have hold them in my hand and actually see why this doesn't look good and why one that's thicker looks good. I can't judge from these unless we had 2 houses next to each other. One had thin shingles and one had thick shingles. I would like to be able to have more information to judge if this is something we should be concerned about or not be concerned about. So my comment would be, can we develop some kind of, get some samples or something?
Yeah,
so I can see it?
that's certainly something that we can look to in the future, perhaps for a HPC retreat as a topic of discussion. We could find some other locations where this is built. Unfortunately, this was a relatively overcast day, so there aren't many shadows that were cast as part of that. But and yes, you're right. The photographs don't really provide a true representation of what those look like in 3 dimensions.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other?
This is
Yes.
Commissioner Sutton. I'm sorry. 2 things. First of all, I'd like to make one comment, which is I was hoping I would not see this again because we saw it about 800,000 times before. But I think I'd like to sort of follow up on Commissioner Doman's question. I believe the last 2 things are not really conditions as much as that if this comes up again, in other words, if they want to at some point replace the siding, I understand, I think, that you're recommending that the siding be different than what's there. And that although paint color is not really an issue generally, that you would recommend that we look at a different paint color as well. Is that, and that might be a condition in the future? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I was saying that this is a sort of a concrete example of areas where the HPC should either take it as a learning experience or provide an instance that leads staff to think that perhaps the HPC's practice is worth reconsidering, and to not, to bring this forward as an example that's in front of the commission rather than bring it up as part of a retreat lesson independent of an actual project.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff? Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. So there isn't an issue with softening the grade to get to 3 to 1. I mean, that it's a little hard to discern that from the diagrams, but that's certainly doable, possible.
Yes, and that's what's proposed, and like I said, it's been provisionally approved pending the HOP. So everybody is otherwise satisfied with their proposed revisions.
Okay, thanks.
And no questions from our remote commissioners? If not, then we have an applicant here tonight, Michael Sherman. If you would come forward, please, and have a seat. Make sure the mic is on to green and identify yourself for the record.
Hey, good evening. My name is Mike Sherman. My wife and 3 kids and I live in the house. Thank you for your consideration today. I want to thank Mr. Bruckert for explaining everything to us. He came out right away. He was incredibly responsive. He sat with my wife and I, so I just want to thank staff for walking us through the process. We got an architect to draft up what we needed to make a timely submission. Thank you all for getting us on an agenda. Happy to answer any questions, but thank you for your consideration, and we would ask for your approval.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Anybody remote want to ask a question? No? I have a question. We spent a lot of time on this house back in 2019 and 2020. So Commissioner Sutton and I did. And we're very familiar with the developer of the property. The hardy board or the siding you have, if you ever wanted to paint it, can it be painted? Do you know?
I don't know. It came from the factory with the paint. It wasn't painted on site, I don't think. I just don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay. Sometimes hardy board can get repainted someday in the future.
I will certainly check and circle back with staff, though.
I'm just, again, paint isn't our thing most of the time, except in a few specific locations. But It did look nice in the original drawings with some color, and this fad of painting every house white with black trim is just getting old. But other than that, if.
I will check.
If there are no more questions for him, for the applicant, then we can say our piece and vote. Does anybody want to say anything about this? Not, thank you, Commissioner Dome.
I don't know what to say. I think this is, it's a very nice house. I understand the fact that it's not as, what was as built is not the same as what was approved. And I also understand it's not the current owners doing on any of this. And I understand that the staff talked about it, and basically the size and the massing is within reason. The pitch of the roof is within reason, even though it's not what we saw originally. It's not worth getting to do it, to tear it out and do it over again, because it seems to fit within the general guidelines. So as it is, I approve this, and I think it's a nice house. I think the grading's got to be attended to, but that's another issue, but I support it.
Are there any other comments? If not, I will close out with, again, I concur completely with Commissioner Doman. I agree with the staff recommendations for this HOP and with the sediment control and regrading issues, and understand that you bought what you bought, and the only thing you need to deal with are the issues related to this specific HOP. So I can support this HOP. Would somebody like to make a motion on this HOP?
This is Commissioner Galway. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission, in accordance with the standards set forth in 24A dash 8B2, 3, 5, and 6, and as well as standards number 2 and 9, approve HOP number 1110102 and 1111619 retroactive as stated by staff.
Do I have a second to the motion?
Commissioner Doman, I'll second that.
All in favor say aye.
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 No nays, no abstentions. This motion is passed. Thank you very much for your patience this evening, and good luck with the grading. Moving on, the last one of the evening, item 1H at 201 Ethan Allen Avenue, Tacoma Park. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Madam Chair. This is a staff report at 201 Ethan Allen in Tacoma Park. This is a non-contributing resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District, constructed circa 1930. The standards of review for this are the Tacoma Park Historic District Design Guidelines, County Code Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. On March 20th, 2024, the HPC approved a HOP to replace rooftop mechanical systems and install a compressor in the east parking lot with other minor alterations. The mechanical systems were installed in late October 2024. The compressor installed in the parking lot exceeded the county's noise ordinance, and the existing structure was constructed without a HOP or other DPS-required building permits. While the structure helped reduce the noise, several complaints about low-frequency noise remained. So the applicant, under this HOP, proposes to demolish the existing unpermitted frame structure, construct a CMU block structure in the same location, and seeks retroactive approval of the 8 concrete bollards that you see in front of the existing structure in the photograph. So again, existing construction conditions. This is the east side of the Tacoma Park Co-op in their parking lot. You see the structure itself has T111 siding, a shed roof with 3-tab shingles. It's a very basic structure. And the proposal is, again, to install a new CMU block structure in place. It will have openings on the top, sort of as a chimney, And then there's a ventilated opening on the backside that faces the building. It will have some engineered baffling both on the walls and in the roof, and installed on the co-op building to try and minimize the sound. And this is the west elevation that faces the co-op. Again, this is a ventilation opening, 4 feet tall, 15 feet 5 inches wide. And again, the condenser is constructed in a slab on grade. So staff finds the existing T111 sided structure does not contribute to the character of the district, and its demolition will return the site to its previous character, which is the permitted appearance. Staff finds the size and scale of the proposed structure are compatible with the character of the site and will not overwhelm the site or the surrounding streetscapes. Staff finds that the painted CMU, asphalt shingles, fiber cement trim, and aluminum door are all compatible with the character of the existing brick and terracotta block building. Staff finds the bollards are a feature typically found in a parking lot, and they will not detract from the character of the site or surrounding district. This structure could be removed at a future date and return the site to its previous appearance. And therefore, staff recommends the HPC approve the proposed structure and the bollards under the design guidelines 24A8B2 and D and standards 2, 9, and 10. So just to take a step back, the non-permitted structure was erected to reduce noise by the compressor installed in the parking lot. It exceeded the decibel reading and violated the county noise ordinance. So after its construction, the measurable volume of the sound was below that statutory limit, but several property owners identified a low-frequency noise that remained and impacted their quality of life. Staff observed this frequency on a site visit and described it as being felt rather than heard. So the applicant consulted with an acoustic engineer, and they identified frequencies between 63 and 80 hertz as being louder as measured from 5 feet away in the existing conditions. So the applicant consulted with Phoenix Noise and Vibration to measure these conditions and reduce their impact. So the focus of the sound baffling was to reduce those lower frequency tones. Again, measures include grout-filled CMU walls with a 2-inch noise barrier. The roof will have a noise dampening sheetrock, plywood sheathing, fiberglass insulation, and asphalt roof shingles, and an engineered noise barrier will be installed opposite the ventilated opening on the existing structure's west elevation. So the modeling done by the applicant's consultant shows that the transmission loss is primarily in those lower frequency levels, and the wall construction actually has less impact on the very high frequency levels, but the roof construction will have more significant impact on the transmission of those higher frequency sounds. So again, staff cannot find a justification in 24A8 or the design guidelines that would provide a basis for approval or denial of the HOP due to the noise. This information is included in this discussion because the design of the structure was developed specifically to reduce the noise from the project site. And staff lacks the educational and professional background to provide additional feedback beyond what was submitted by the applicant, and relies on HPC members who may be able to determine if additional materials are necessary for the HPC to render a final decision. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
I have a couple of questions for staff, if I may start off. The position of this, was the original equipment in this location?
Yes, this is the approved location.
Okay. And can they put it on the other side of the building if the equipment allowed? I mean, in the other parking lot, is there room there that they control to put it away from the street?
So that the parking lot to the west is owned by the city.
Okay.
This is, I believe the building is leased, but the lease includes the parking lot on the east side. So
no.
So no. So I'm sorry. Right. Yeah, so Rebecca Ballo is showing that the property line is hard up again, it's a zero lot line on the west side, so that's a separate property owned by a different
Okay.
property owner.
So the other parking, the bigger parking lot on the opposite side of the building is not available for the equipment to go into, correct? Could they put it on the roof if the building was structurally capable of holding it? And then you can't answer that question, right?
Right.
Okay, just putting it out there. I think that's all of my questions. Anybody else have any other questions about this?
This is Commissioner Sutton. I have, I guess, one major question, which is you're saying that the structure in which this is located is okay, compatible, right? You're saying that you suggest to us that it's compatible, I'm sorry?
No, I'm sorry, finish your question.
Well, you're saying the structure itself is compatible, but the issue is with the material, right? And I mean the condenser or whatever that thing is. But I'm not sure that we have a whole lot of expertise to say that's okay or not okay, right? Am I correct in saying that?
Well, I mean, this is a physical alteration to a building within the Tacoma Park Historic District, so the HPC has purview over the design and materials of what gets built.
Right, but not necessarily the mechanism that will be housed inside of this structure, correct?
Well, so that was, the condenser was approved by the HPC in 2024.
Right.
The approval included a chain link fence around it. It's the operation of that mechanical system exceeds the county's noise ordinance. So the applicant is responding to the sound of its operation by trying to enclose it and mitigate the sound sufficiently that it satisfies all of the statutory requirements. So the HOP as we received it is to demolish the existing structure and construct the new one, which staff is supportive of.
Okay, that's I think you've answered my question. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff? If not, then we have the three members of the applicant party to come forward: Clifford Bates, Garrett Schaefer, and Mike Houston. If you'd please come forward and identify yourselves. Make sure the mic is on green. There's only two of you.
Marty Bates from Bates Architects. Garrett Schaefer, Bates Architects. Just one comment.
Certainly.
We agreed with the staff report, but the one comment was the enclosure that's there now was a reaction to solving an immediate problem and is not meant to be permanent. What we're proposing today is the permanent solution. And yes, we did retain expertise. I'm an architect. I'm not I don't even write acoustician. But based on their recommendations, we feel like we've accomplished the reduction in the noise. Again, the evidence is, I don't think, necessarily a part of this application, but we think we provided it just to sort of support our cause.
Thank you. That's your entire presentation then?
Again, we agree with the staff recommendation.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant's team? Commissioner Galway, our resident MEP.
This is Commissioner Galway. In the Phoenix Noise and Vibration Report, they did a nice job of showing the dBA for each frequency beyond almost an extreme from, I don't know, 30 or 40 all the way up to 20,000 or something, and they showed the existing conditions, and that makes sense. I'm curious, were they unable to actually replicate it? Because this actually, graph one says existing roof materials compared to proposed roof materials, and then they said composite transmission loss, which they did provide, but they really didn't in their report convince me that the new installation with the new materials would result in a reduced mitigation that would be below the requirements. And I don't know why they weren't able to kind of provide that table. I mean, they provided the STC relationships or the DB reduction relationships, but do you know why they may not have finished that?
No, but what we're trying to do here is to come up with a scheme. This is just the first hurdle, obviously, in running this through DPS and getting all of the other things done. Another report based on our final construction documents that I think they would be able to state emphatically what we've accomplished. And again, I think we're very close by the Phoenix report to doing that. Even the temporary enclosure was able to do a great deal of the mitigation. But our final solution, we hope, permanent solution, we think will accomplish that.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? If not, we have one person coming for public testimony, Matt Oakes, if you'd like to come forward. And I did sit down in front of a mic, make sure it's turned on to green, and identify yourself for the record.
Madam Chair, just to point out, I just want to add that we did receive a number of written comments that were included in your board books for your review prior to this meeting.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Matt Oakes. I'm one of the neighbors. There's several of us who live immediately across the street from this structure. I'd like to talk a little bit about how it got developed. First, I'd like to speak to a question you asked as chair. The parking lot on the other side of the building is controlled by the city. We've talked to the city manager. They've expressed willingness to work with the co-op if the co-op was interested at all in moving their structure to the other side. As I understand it, the co-op's not willing to entertain that as an option. If that's not the case, I'd love to know it. In the 6 months that this has been across the street, it's provided a disturbing amount of noise. And when I say disturbing, I mean it keeps some of us awake at night. It's moved children out of their rooms. It's the single most dramatic impact that's happened in this corner of the neighborhood since I've lived there. When they first installed it, it was generating noise rotating up to 95 decibels. They did put in a temporary structure that took it down beneath the maximum, but we went from no noise to noise that's hovering just below the maximum of the county. It continues to be disturbing, and it's not the high-frequency noise that's creating the trouble, it's the low-frequency noise, and that's not what you measure with a typical decibel measurement. And so even though they knocked down the high-frequency noise with their temporary structure, the low-frequency noise wasn't nearly as dramatically impacted, and it can still be heard inside several of the houses. And I'm worried about this because this initial structure was developed without any consultation to any of the neighbors. And it was permitted that way. It was a 14-ton unit that was moved from the roof to become a 37.5-ton unit at ground level. And since since we talked to them immediately after they turned this unit on and we realized the impact of the noise, they have continued to not talk to us in any meaningful way. No information provided. We'd like to be engaged. I understand they've hired experts. We'd like to see what their experts have said. We'd like to understand it. We have the capacity and the capability within the neighborhood to talk to people who can read these reports. They won't provide them to us at all. Nothing. Not a single piece of information is provided to me. They've talked to some of our neighbors indirectly, but not provided significant information. This process is extremely disturbing. I don't understand how they even could have gotten a permit to move this HVAC system from their roof to ground level, much less say that what they've done is completely satisfying of all requirements without talking to us at all, without entertaining the option of moving it to the other side. I am just baffled by this organization not being willing to talk to the neighbors at all. And I don't know that this is the group that can do anything about it, but to the extent that you can help, I would truly appreciate it. And one additional statement, and then I'll conclude. I see my time's up. Their engineers stated that their report only compares the composite loss of the enclosure wall and the roof assembly and not the overall effectiveness of the unit. I find that disturbing, especially given that this unit has, roughly 16 feet long by 4 feet long holes, 2 of them. And it's also helpful to understand at the site that all of the houses are well above the height of this chimney. There's a hill, and the houses across the street are uphill. My house is a multi-story house immediately adjacent. And, you know, just because it's venting at the roof, that's, you know, an open hole for sound that reaches my house.
Thank you. That's helpful to hear that. Oh, yes, Commissioner Doman, you can ask some questions.
This is Commissioner Dolman. If I could get staffer to put on figure 1 again, which is the street view of the co-op and the parking lot. And my question is to the applicant is, which houses, where, there, I know there were like four letters submitted to staff and to the commission regarding this, and can you point out in this picture that's on the screen right now, which house is yours and where you are physically located? Can you?
Sure. Let's see. So that star is the co-op, and you see that red line road that runs behind the co-op. I could point to it very easily. Is there a direct?
Yeah. Now, which one
Okay,
is
so
yours?
move that arrow just about up and to the right. Yeah, to the right, to the right, to the right. Right there. That's my house. Oh, up a little more. You see those streets? Yeah, to the left. That's Hardy's house. Across that street. Yeah, it's on the corner directly behind the co-op.
So you're not right directly, there's the streets between you and the...
There's a street between me and the unit. I could chuck a tennis ball and hit it.
Yeah, is there much traffic on these streets that...
No, these are residential. So the street in front of the co-op is a fairly highly trafficked street.
Is that Ethan Allen right there?
That's Ethan Allen.
And that's the big one that makes the curve there, right?
Yeah,
and I
it's
see
the big
your
one
star.
that makes the curve. Exactly.
What's the small street coming off to the right of the co-op there?
Off to the right of the co-op. So Sycamore is the street yeah, exactly. That's Sycamore.
That's Sycamore.
And if you branch off behind the co-op, that's, I should know, it's the house my street's on, but.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's Columbus.
but there are no neighbors' houses directly abutting the property. You're all separated by a street.
We're all across the street. That's right.
You're all across the street. Okay. And I guess if north is the top, then west would be to the left of the building. Is that a parking lot there next to it, onto the left side?
Yeah, there's a parking lot next to the building.
And this is the one that you don't have access, or the...
There's a parking lot on either side. There's a small parking lot along Sycamore, and then there's a larger parking lot on the other side. And then there's an auto repair shop on the other side of the large parking lot.
And these, of course, I guess Ethan Allen is a heavily trafficked road.
Yep.
And then Sycamore, which is a residential street, that's not a lot of traffic on there?
That's right.
You get car noise, truck noise, stuff like that up and down there?
We get truck noise primarily from the co-op's deliveries.
They come into the side or to the back?
They come into the large lot on the other side, the city-owned lot.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'm just trying to get an idea where you are in relationship to the co-op, and
yep,
you're what would that be? Maybe 50 feet away, something like that, or more?
I'd say, yeah. I mean, how many feet is a street? Yeah, it's probably 40, 50 feet, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just trying to see where you are on this. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Oakes from any of the other commissioners who I can't see your pictures anymore?
Well, one side note, not related to this case at all, but Hardy Plank siding, the color safe, it's got a 15-year warranty. You can repaint it, you void the warranty, but you could repaint it for what it's worth.
Thank you.
What's that? Oh, I was answering a question that came up in the prior
From
hearing.
the previous. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be painted, it voids the warranty, but you can paint it.
Yeah. Would our remote commissioners have any questions for Mr. Oates?
No, this Commissioner Sutton, I do not have any questions.
Actually, I have a question, but for this staff, I don't know who actually I should ask this question. This is Commissioner Nasser. So I just want to understand, we are here to approve the enclosure material, massing, and the aesthetic look of it. So we don't have a say about the equipment itself. We don't have the authority or jurisdiction. So let's say we don't approve this hub. What's going to happen? Like, they're going to remove the enclosure, and what is the next? I mean, I just don't understand, since we don't have the authority to ask the owner to remove the equipment, what can we do to help here? It's just, uh, I'm just trying to understand our role here.
Right, so the HPC previously approved the mechanical equipment in this location. So the question then that the applicant is presented in their application is, one, are they allowed to demolish the existing structure that they identified as temporary? And then two, is the structure that they're proposing to construct compatible with the character of the site and the surrounding district as a non-contributing resource? Now, again, we did a little more discussion of the impact of noise and the acoustic evaluations because this was a known issue that had been raised to both staff and DPS prior to the submission of this HOP. And those issues were integral into how to actually design the structure itself. So that's why that background information was included to a much more extensive degree than ordinarily would have happened.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
You guys, you're the architect.
Correct.
But the owner or I'm trying to think. The co-op is being run there as a lease into from the owner of the property, right? Somebody owns this property, and the co-op is just leasing that building. Is that correct?
I can't speak to that, because I don't really know.
Well, I was trying, well, it seems as if the neighbor, Mr. Oakes, says nobody's talked to him. I mean, obviously, you're the architect, but can you people get together or have some kind of conversation? I know this is beyond the Historic Preservation Commission, because we're looking at the impact on the neighborhood as far as the architectural features of this thing, right? But as far as you know, has the owner of the co-op reached out? Have you any feedback on what's going on, or don't you know?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, there was conversations with the owners, but I couldn't check every address and say that those individuals were, we aren't involved in that part of the conversation.
I just feel it'd be nice if someone from the co-op was actually here to answer some questions, but.
The manager of the co-op is here. He just didn't want to speak. He's back in the crowd.
He is here.
He is absolutely here.
Oh. Well, I guess if he doesn't want to speak, we won't hear from him.
He absolutely doesn't seem to.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no more questions, then we can make our comments before we vote on this. We are voting on this structure and its compatibility with the surrounding area. But the noise is a big issue, and what we don't want to have happen is for the noise not to be dealt with, and they've got to come back and open this thing up and deal with it again or rebuild it again. It is apparently from the map, they can't move this equipment to the other side of the building because they don't own that property, and any agreement they would have to make with the city is their business. We don't know why it can't go on the roof, but it may be heavier. We don't know. They haven't given us that information. So we are dealing with the structure where it is. And only one of us has even a remotely close understanding of what's going on with the equipment, but not with the acoustics. He's not an acoustician. So all we can really say is address the physical appearance of the structure, and I believe we can strongly urge the co-op to do everything in its power to make sure that the design of this, the interior design, has every element in it to mitigate the noise. And I understand it's CMU block construction, and the cells in the CMU block are being handled how?
Fully grouted?
Fully grouted? Would that work better than filling it with a foam product?
Well, according to our consultant, density is the highest form of sound attenuation.
So basically one big thick wall.
Yeah, and again, from my conversations with our client, the co-op, is that we are trying to do everything we can to meet ultimately the requirement.
But you still have the top is open to vent?
It requires intake of air and exhaust of air to make the compressors work, the refrigeration.
Is the chimney high enough to kind of deflect sound towards the building as opposed to?
Well, sitting here today, I would have to say yes, because that's, again, what our consultants are saying.
Yeah, acoustic, okay.
But again, we have yet to go through the full construction documents to have them then model or study this design.
Okay, understood. All right, so back to what we are here to do tonight, which is to approve the, does this structure conform to the requirements of this historic district? And can the staff bring their recommendation back up? There. Staff findings and recommendations. So we're talking about the bollards and the structure that could be removed or at a future date and return the site to its previous appearance. And that's kind of where we are. So that's the limits of what we can do, sir. So.
No, I understand. I mean, and certainly things with this structure that I had a question about, and I don't know if it's within your purview, we're rethinking the venting, because I do think sound will come through those exposed vents. And if it was a higher chimney, a higher vent, then of course I think the sound would be directed upwards, and you could reduce the size of the intake vent if you used a forced air vent. And there's already, 37.5 tons of HVAC unit in there. Having a forced air fan is not going to make the difference, and it may allow us to vent, both of those vents higher. I think there's things that can be done. I think that moving it to the other side is certainly something I'd love for them to think of, and just to have an open discussion. And we can't seem to do that, and I don't know why.
Okay.
They've given me their reasons that don't make sense to me. And they just built it in the first place without any advice and consent, and they're doing it again. And each time they do that, they say, well, now the unit's there, we can't move it. Well, now the building's there, we can't move it. And now we've put an additional building there and we can't move it. And my concern is if this doesn't fix the sound, it gets harder and harder as these things get baked in. And so, again, I understand you're a historic permitting agency and you have limits to your role, but that's my concern, and this is the first opportunity I've had to air it, and I really do appreciate the process.
And we do hear you, and we are limited in our purview, but the letters from your neighbors have also been entered into our record, as your comments have been entered into the record for the HPC. But with that, I would, Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. This is actually a topic that I'm very comfortable with. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I oftentimes deal with the location of equipment and the sound that it produces. When I look at the existing piece of equipment sitting on site versus the temporary enclosure that's there versus the new enclosure, hands down, without a doubt, the new enclosure is aesthetically much more pleasing than any of the other options. So I can support the enclosure. The issue you are all discussing is a very relevant issue, but that's the one of the sound itself. We can look at the STC, the sound transmission coefficient of all the products, the masonry grout, masonry wall, the very heavy roof, liner, insulation on the inside of the wall, all those things you can look at. But once you put a hole in those materials and those surfaces, it goes to hell in a handbasket. The sound will, it will still help, but it will not be a full reduction that you'll see in the wall. So really you have to study not just the materials that go into it, but any openings that are in that material. Now the sketch, there's an opening in the back towards the building. That's a positive thing. I'd be very concerned about putting any sort of fan. You could create even additional sound by putting a fan in that wall, a blower in that, and trying to force it through. You want very low velocity through an opening like that to keep that from becoming a sound problem. The chimney, the height is going to be an issue. I would certainly encourage you guys to look at that as you if we talk to your acoustical guy and a consultant and make sure that that doesn't become a problem. Now, in terms of, you made a comment, well, we didn't used to have any sound and now we have sound. From a purely from a code review standpoint, whether it's Tacoma, and I think the numbers were 60 during the day and 55 at night, or Montgomery County, which is 65 or 50, whatever those two numbers are, the obligation of the owner at this point really is to make sure that those levels during the day and at night at the property line, at their property line, do not exceed those values. The idea that you're going to get it back to zero, I mean, there's,
I don't
or even
expect
reduction, it's not,
that,
it's just
but-
not appropriate to be thinking that way, unfortunately.
No, I understand that, but if the standard is you can go up to the, just ooch below the maximum sound, what's to stop the neighbors from going to every member of the co-op board, creating, 55 decibels of noise with low vibration and just playing it? Like, it's a degradation of the neighborhood. I don't want to do that. But I think the fact that they've done it to me without any consultation is really problematic.
Well, I would say this, and not to cut you off, but as an engineer, that is my I am responsible to make sure on my design that I don't exceed those levels. I don't purposefully try to make them any higher than they need to be. Equipment is loud, unfortunately, and that is distance is your friend. And mass, you're absolutely right. Mass is has a much better ability to stop the sound from being transmitted. Fluffy insulation, it will slow down the sound, but it will not stop it. They've done a lot of things in this design with the very mass. I'm getting off topic, but the structural support for the unit is very beefy, very massy. That's going to reduce any sort of ground penetration. I did go to the site. The timing wasn't really particularly helpful from your argument because there was a lot of traffic, and I heard as much noise from the vehicles in front of your house going by as I did that unit. But I did hear the unit. I don't deny that, and it is a low frequency sound. I don't deny that. The recommended design at this point will go a long way to helping. I just don't know how far it'll go and whether it'll be something that they can comfortably say is code compliant, and it's something that you can say as a neighbor that it's acceptable. And I think that's where you guys need to kind of work together. But in terms of our responsibility as the Historic Preservation Commission, we're looking at the structure, and I can certainly support the design. Thank you.
Are there any, Commissioner, nope, any other comments from our remote commissioners? No. Nope. Unfortunately, our Tacoma Park Commissioner isn't here tonight. But I can support the current design. knowing that they still have to go through DPS. And you can make complaints, you can go to DPS also and express your concern about the sound. And that's the better place to deal with your complaints about the design. I'll say a few more comments after we vote. Can I make a motion? No. What?
Isn't this just, oh, this isn't a hop. Okay.
This isn't a hop?
It is.
It is a hop,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Make a motion.
Commissioner Galway, would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission, in accordance with the standards set forth in Section 24A of Montgomery County, the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and that the Tacoma Park Historic District Guidelines approve the HOP application, application number 1112653, as indicated by the staff.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Dolman, I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? Then this motion passes. The HOP is approved. Now, before you all get up, a lot of us on the commission were here when Tacoma Junction was being approved, was being planned, and we went through many, many, many hearings about Tacoma Junction.
Debated.
Huh? Yeah.
Debated would be a better one.
Debated, well, yes, debated. And that was a really difficult review process for us because we became the focus of everything, even though we were only one part of the review of that plan. And the plan did not go forward. But it's worth noting that if the plan had gone forward, there would be no opportunity to put this equipment on the other side of the building. It would be where it is now. So keep that in mind, that if Tacoma's willing to have it moved over there and the applicant is also willing to move it over there, that's their business. And terrific if they are willing to do that. But again, that's not something we can weigh in on. And there is that big empty lot that everybody keeps looking at, like, gee, what could we do with that? It would behoove the applicant to work with the community, to work with the neighbors, to start a dialogue with them and with the city in the same room so everybody can behave themselves, but to understand the concerns and the issues and try to get to a solution where everybody is happy. The people can sleep, the co-op can stay cool, the engineers, the acousticians, and the architects can go back to the rest of their lives, and everybody is pleased. And I would encourage the co-op to open a dialogue with their neighbors, because the co-op is a loved institution in Tacoma Park. Don't throw that away so easily. And again, the HOP is approved, and I hope this works, because we don't want to have you here again when you've got to get into this building, this new structure, because it's not working right. So thank you very much for your time this evening and for coming. And I do hope this works out. I'd much rather have you come about something with your house that you want to do, and we can talk to you personally about your house and not about the noise from across the street.
I am with you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Commission item, or minutes first. We have 2 minutes.
We do, Madam Chair, the March 26th minutes and the April 9th minutes. Those were just uploaded to your board book today, so I don't know if the commission has had a chance to read those. If not, we can easily defer those to the next meeting.
I did not read them, and I wasn't at one of those meetings. If nobody else read them, we'll defer them to next time. Commission items?
Can we get a motion
Oh.
to defer?
Yes. Can I have a motion to defer the meeting minutes?
This is Commissioner Galway. I make the motion that we defer the March 26th and April 9th meeting minutes until next meeting.
A
Or
second.
the approval of those meeting
I'll
minutes.
second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Those minutes are deferred to the next meeting. Commission items? I don't think there are anything. Do I have a zoning meeting to go to Monday?
No.
Good.
But we do, as a staff item update, we do have the public hearings at the planning board on May the 22nd for the Horad House designation as part of the University Boulevard Corridor Plan.
Okay.
And we also have the designation of Timberlawn as a standalone master plan historic site. So Chair Burdett, I will forward you the sign up to testify for those items and get that on your calendar. I think unfortunately one is going to be in the morning and then the other one is after lunch.
Oh, great.
So maybe if you want to split that up, I don't know what your day looks like, but I'm happy to work with you on that so we can get those items.
Is that
covered.
here? Or
It's
is it-
here.
Oh, that's not bad. Oh,
Yeah.
that's better.
Okay.
And other than any other staff items?
No others.
There is on tomorrow the State of the County address, and that's in Rockville somewhere. I will be attending as soon as I figure out where it is for the HPC. There it is. Thursday, April 24th, 6 p.m. at the Isaiah Leggett Executive Office Building, Terrace Level 101 Monroe Street. I will be attending representing the HPC, but if anybody would like to join me, I would welcome the company. And with that,
I had one more item.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
so sorry. Just a reminder that the ad has posted for the terms that have expired on the HPC, and applications are due before the end of the month. So for those commissioners that are eligible for a new term, please, if you'd like to, please be sure to reapply, and we should have the list of candidates that would be replacing Commissioner Radu and Commissioner Sutton, hopefully in hand this spring, this summer, so we can conduct those interviews. But it's the end of the month, or if you know likely candidates, please forward them the ad. It's in everybody's emails. I'd sent it out a couple weeks ago. Let me know if you have any questions.
once we adjourn, I'm going to ask you who has to renew.
Okay.
All right. So with that, we are adjourned. The meeting is adjourned.